Hello and welcome to the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, where stories become lessons and every journey has something to teach us. Every week I sit down with people from all walks of life to hear their adventures, explore their experiences, and uncover the insights that have shaped them along the way. Whether it's from the outdoors, the classroom, or any other path, each conversation offers a fresh perspective on learning, growth, and what it means to truly connect with the world and the people around us. And on this week's episode of the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, we have Traci Kasper. Tracy, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who you are?
Well, I am Tracy. I live in Southern California, and I have been on a health journey for about the past 8 or 9 years. Excuse me. And it has led me to create a walking movement, and it's called One Small Step Walks. When people usually hear that, they think about just walking, but it's actually so much more than that. Because right now, I don't know if you can relate to this, but
Hmm.
we live in a society that is so connected online, but everybody still feels isolated or lonely, and they're looking for community. They're looking for a place where they don't have to handle everything on their own, to do life by themselves. And that is really how One Small Step Walks was born. Um, in my health journey, walking became a huge part of it. And I really wished that I didn't have to do it alone.
Hmm.
And I wished that something like this existed. And that is how we came about.
I love the way you phrased it. It's something I think about quite a bit because it is easy, even just friendships, to keep them all online.
Yes.
I've got several friends that, I've met online through this podcast and other mediums. And if I'm near them, I'm going to, send them a message and say, "Do you want to get a cup of coffee?" Now, nobody's ever told me that's weird, but I know some people probably go, "What if they're a serial killer? What if they're this?" But I don't like friendships to just stop at the screen. I'd like to
Right.
buy, I've met several podcast guests when I've been traveling around. And, let's get a cup of coffee. Let's actually shake each other's hand and have
Yeah,
that
that's so
human
cool.
connection. So yeah, I very much feel what you're talking about. How did it start for you where you live in your life, the one small step movement? Sort of the nuts and bolts of getting going.
Yeah. So I'll go a little bit more into my health journey.
Hmm.
Um, In my early 30s, I started to feel absolutely terrible. And so I went to the doctor. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I did not know anything about this. I didn't know if it was a death sentence. I and so what I did was I went home and I Googled it.
Right.
Don't ever do
I
that.
had a long conversation with a nurse practitioner yesterday about the pros and cons of Googling or chat GPTing your symptoms.
Yeah, nowadays
Yes.
it's ChatGPT, but yeah,
Yes.
for sure. So, but what I found was that people in their early 40s had just succumbed to this diagnosis, and they refused, or not refused, they said they can't work, they can't walk, they can't work out, they can't drive. And I thought that was absolutely crazy that they
Hmm.
just accepted this as their life. And I, at that time, said, this is not going to be me. It's not going to be my story. I'm going to figure this out. And the doctors wanted to put me on all these medications. And at the time, I was trying to reduce the harmful ingredients that I put in my body. I could talk about that for hours. I'll just leave it
It's
there.
it's on my list of things to ask you about his diet. We're going to come to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, and so I refused the medications. I said, I want to try this naturally first. Well, everyone kept telling me I needed to change the way I ate. And I ate grilled cheese, I ate quesadillas, and I ate pizza for every single meal.
I love it. Don't you
So,
on your Instagram? I think it says you ate like a 7-year-old or something,
yes.
which I think we're all guilty of an element of that.
Yes, and there's absolutely places for those things. I'm not saying don't eat those things, but maybe not for every day for every meal.
Right.
Um, but honestly, it took me 2 years before I made any changes. And I was dabbling in things, and this didn't work, and that didn't work, and I was very stubborn. And so one day I said, this is enough. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm gonna try changing the way I eat. And so I can tell these people that they're wrong. And, and so for me, I stopped eating gluten and dairy for 30 days. Um, Again, I am not telling everyone that they should do that,
Of
but
course,
what I
yes.
found for my body, I felt absolutely phenomenal. And so changing those things, it wasn't easy, but the feeling made it so much, so worth it. So then again, for another couple years, I would go a span of time where I didn't eat it, and then I would, and then I'd go back and forth. So it wasn't just overnight one time. Okay, I'm fixed now.
Right.
Um, and so after a few more years, I decided again, I'm done playing around. We only get one life. Why feel terrible? If I know how to properly fuel my body, why am I doing this to myself? So when I did that, it has now been, what year is it? It has now been 4.5 years that I have been gluten and dairy free, and it pretty much healed me. And so it was pretty crazy to think that just changing the way I ate could do that. But a huge part that I didn't mention yet
Mhm.
was movement. Because when I was eating that way, I didn't have any energy. I felt so fatigued all the time and I hurt. So I didn't want to get up and move my body. Like I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't even want to go on a walk. I refused to go on a walk, actually.
Right.
And so once I did this change, I got so much more energy that I was able to start moving my body. And the way that I did that was with walking. And so I decided to do it. I would go with family, I would go with friends because I didn't know of any walking groups at the time. I also, this was during the pandemic, I had just moved to a new area. And so I didn't know anybody except for my family. Um, and so I started walking, and then it just kind of I fell in love with it, which feels weird to say, but I
No,
did.
no, it might sound weird. I get it. Like I can completely relate. Something that's jumped out at me is with what you said there, and because I think this is so relatable, is you said it kind of took you a couple of years to make the changes, and I think about this a lot because we all do it. We've all done it, and I don't really know why, but it's the whole like the diet starts Monday, and then you eat junk on Wednesday. Oh, well, I'll start next Monday. There's something in us that makes that change really difficult. I was wondering if you might be able to talk us through what took you some time, not out of anything negative. It's something we all deal with, and it might be able to help some listeners out there.
I honestly think it was my mindset. And so I've been working hard on my mindset for can't even tell you how many years, and really jumped into it hardcore the last 5 or 6 years. And once I started to do that, I learned about consistency versus perfection. Now, in our society, we talk about this a lot, but it often gets confused. So, perfection is saying, I'm going to start this diet on Monday, and then by Wednesday, when you quote unquote fail, you say, okay, this didn't work. It's it doesn't work, and now I'm just going to go back to my old ways. Where if you switch that and say, instead of, okay, I made a mistake, I didn't do exactly what I was hoping for on Wednesday, continue with what you were hoping for. Just get back up and do it again. Tomorrow is a new day. Even like the next meal is a new meal. Um, and that's where consistency really comes in, is when you're in those hard times and you're ready to quit, you're ready to throw in the towel. Um, and if you keep
Mhm.
going, that is where you really build your foundation and create those habits for the sustainable changes. And that's really where the name One Small Step came from, is taking those small steps to create those sustainable habits over time. When it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, you just have to push through and then eventually you'll get to your goal.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but when I read the name One Small Step, I of course think of landing on the moon and all of that. And I was, I was like, I didn't know if it was intent, but like that's we're all aiming for something, and that was what they said. And I'll certainly never forget One Small Step because of that.
I'm not affiliated with the moon landing in
Right?
any way.
Right. Just put that in the disclaimer of the show notes.
Yes.
I love it. Well, I'd love to ask you about, again, not like, expecting you to give diet advice to anyone or anything like that, but just, again, I think we can all, I don't know anyone who's not gone into the grocery store over the last 5 years and gone, man alive, things are getting expensive. And it's also intimidating. It's so easy to grab the frozen pizza, the ready-made meal, the stuff in the brightly colored boxes in the frozen section. And a lot of us will go, I don't even know where to start. Yes, I'd like to eat healthily, but where do you go with that? Something I think about all the time is the main road in our city that I drive down several times a week. There is a CVS on one corner, a Walgreens on one corner, and then fast food places on the other. And that is almost a universal truth in this country.
Yep.
And it just seems intimidating to know where to start in a practical sense. Once you've got the mindset of, I'm going to do this, you walk into your supermarket, your grocery store. Do you have any advice for people of where to start?
So everyone's body is different. So like I'm not an expert on diet for
Right,
sure.
right. And I'm
Like
just, yes, yes.
yeah. So I would definitely, I have talked to dietitians, I've worked with coaches, I've worked with personal trainers and things like that at different parts of my journey. And what I can say is the part of it that really made it stick was the mindset, and having that motivation to start. That is that is the first step,
Hmm.
but really it's when you're doing it for a couple days and then you lose that motivation. That one. That is really where the magic happens. And because motivation is fleeting, it's not going to stay. And if you really want to make a change, and I'm not just talking about in your diet or your movement, in any aspect of your life, you get excited and you get that motivation in the beginning, but then a couple days later, you're not seeing immediate results and it's hard to make those changes. You want to go back to how you were before, and that's when you have to push through. So that's where I would focus on, is to
Hmm.
really set yourself up and say, I'm going to do this. This is what I want. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. Something that's really helped me is to remind myself that I'm going to fall in love with the journey and not focus on the end result.
I love that. I think that's a very, very important mindset to have. I was curious as to how the mindset has manifested itself into daily habits. We hear it a lot, and I think it's solid advice for the most part, is creating good daily habits. And I was curious as to your journey, how your daily habits may have changed.
Oh, they have done a complete flip-flop. So when I've worked on my mindset, again, that is not a fix that happens overnight. It's a
Hmm.
constant thing that um that you have to work on. And I my first taste of it was I read a personal growth book and I really fell in love with it. So then I wanted to read another one. And if anyone out there listening says I don't read books, that was me. I, I I graduated college with my bachelor's degree and did not read a book. Let me
Right?
tell you. But I found this, it was a book club. So, of course, it was community, it was the accountability. And so we just read little bits at a time. I think I did it on Audible because I still was like, no, I don't read.
Yep.
Um, and but you find what works for you. So I started with a personal growth book, and then that moved into doing affirmations, and then that moved into meditation, and then that moved into journaling. And I don't do all of those things every day, but it's nice to have different modalities that I can choose from. Um, and something else that I would like to add is that things are not going to just be go up like this. Once you start, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go up, it sometimes might go way
Hmm.
down, it'll still go back up. I was at the top of my game. I had made these changes. I was working out regularly, going on my walks. And in December of 24, I found out that I had a benign tumor in my shin bone that needed to be removed. It was non-cancerous. And after that, I couldn't walk and I couldn't drive for a few months. And that was very, very hard because I'm used to going where I want to go when I
Hmm.
want to go there. I'm an adult. And now I had to rely on other people like, hey, do you have time to take me to this appointment? Or can I go out to get food? Just get
Right.
groceries. It was it was a lot to deal with. And I know that had I not worked on my mindset the way that I did, I would not have got through it the way I did. The doctors told me you cannot put your foot on the ground for 3 months. You cannot put pressure on your foot for 3 months. And I said, sorry, I go on a 3-mile walk every day. That's not going to work for me.
Right.
So I started, not only did I put pressure on my foot, but I started walking at 2 months. And so I'm not saying to ignore your doctor's
Of
orders.
course,
That's not what I'm
yes.
saying. But I was determined and I worked at it. Different, um, I did different exercises and strength, and I got myself so that I could speed up this process and get back to where I was. And that took close to a year. Um,
Right.
but I started, once I felt okay, I started with a half a mile. And that exhausted me at the time. And
Hmm.
that again was really hard to take in. But you just work up to that. And once that felt easy, then I went up to 1 mile. And then eventually I got back to where I was before. But it was quite a journey. And I owe it all to the mindset that I worked on.
That's it's fascinating because we'll often focus on the physical pain and the rehabilitation, But the mental side of it, I think it's again my non-medical opinion, that could be what makes or breaks a person, is how you deal with these situations.
100%.
Well, if we pivot back around to one small step, I've spoken to several people, and there's always an agreement that going a lot of people will go for a walk, go for a hike, I'm sure go for a run too, and we can all agree on the physical benefits of that. But I was curious as to the sense of community that gets formed. We alluded to this right in the beginning. We're all looking for a connection. But I'd love to hear about what you have found by starting this group in terms of connection, meeting other people, and other benefits other than the physical side of walking.
I love that question because one of my absolute favorite things is that every single person that shows up leaves with a smile on their face. And to me, that's priceless. So they leave happy, they leave with their mood lifted, and some of that has to do with getting fresh air. Some of
Hmm.
that has to do with getting out and moving your body because, we get the endorphins and things like that. But a lot of it has to do with the connections that they make at the walk. And sometimes I just like to walk in the back and listen to the conversations that are happening. And it's people that they did not know each other. They normally don't go up to strangers and just start having conversations. That's not just
Right?
something they do. But these people from different walks of life are finding similarities and they are they're finding business connections, they're finding friendships. I've seen a few days after some of my walks, I see on social media that this person and this person are in the same place. And I'm like, wait, how do they know each other? Oh, that's right. They went to my walk. And so it's pretty cool to watch.
I love that. It reminds me of a conversation, and we did a podcast episode with a friend of mine, Savannah, who has done multiple long distance through hikes, totaling 10,000 miles or more. And for part of, she wrote a dissertation, and part of her research was interviewing Appalachian Trail through hikers before their hike and then after their hike. And I don't want to get this wrong, but what I took away from hearing her talk about it was going into the hike, people were looking forward to the views, the scenery, the mountains. When they left, the thing they were going to miss the most wasn't any of that, but it was the people. It always came down to the people they'd met and the friendships that had been forged on the trail. And whether it's 2,000 miles on the AT or 2 miles in California, I think it's a universal truth.
Absolutely. Yeah, you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head with that one for sure.
Yeah, because yeah, again, if you ask somebody to come on a walk, they might look forward to meeting people, but it's probably not the first thing. It's getting outdoors, getting exercise. But my experience tells me when you form these kinds of groups like you have, people end up going out for dinner. They go out for lunch. They get
Hmm.
together outside of the walking because of that friendship and community that's been formed.
Exactly.
Something that you mentioned several times on your Instagram profile certainly is resilience, which it's a word that has a lot of meaning to me because I gave a talk at the university where I work on resilience earlier this year. So really dug into it. What does it mean to me, to different people, to young people, old people? What does resilience mean to you, and what are the challenges you have faced? How have they influenced what that word means to you?
So I've really come to identify with being resilient, and I've kind of alluded to it in things that I've been talking about because we go through challenges, sometimes daily. If you could go out and meet a group of 50 people, and every single one of them is dealing with something, whether that be small or they've lost a parent, they're grieving any type of loved one,
Hmm.
or you know, losing a job, it, anything that anyone has
Hmm.
gone through. And the word resilient means to me how you deal with those challenges. Because again, like I said, we're all going to go through them, but if you let it define you and you let it take over your life, that to me is a choice. Um, for me, I lost my mom at 21, and I had before that a picture perfect upbringing, mom, a dad, we were comfortable, and she did everything for me. So I was this young adult, and I had to figure out how to live life without my favorite person, my best friend, and also become an adult in the world.
Right.
And I did not deal with that very well, not at all. And so it wasn't for about 8 to 10 years later until I started to deal with it. And then about 5, 6 years later after that, I was feeling pretty good. And then that's when my health journey started. And so it just, I mean, I still miss my
Of
mom,
course.
but I don't let the challenges define me. Like when I went through the surgery with my leg, I didn't say, okay, well, one person told me that I could possibly not ever go on a walk ever again. And so I'm just going to say I'm never going to be able to walk for recreation ever again. No, I said absolutely not. I'm going to get back to where I was. It's not going to be tomorrow and it's not going to be easy, but I will get there. And to me, that is what resilience means.
I love it. Two things have jumped out at me. One is the old saying, whether you say you can or you say you can't, you're right. You've just personified it. That mindset, that attitude. And also, I'd actually written this down and you've brought it up. Um, Man alive, we as human beings were scared to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and scared to say we're struggling with something, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And I've never quite figured out why we all have a persona put on where we're all struggling with something, relationships, money, kids, parents, work, whatever it may be. I don't know anyone who has a stress-free life,
No.
and yet we're fearful to be vulnerable. And something I've found, and through some research, I've found this to be true as well through counseling and therapy sessions that other people have done, that being out in nature can actually make it a little easier sometimes to be a bit vulnerable and have tough conversations.
Wow, I haven't heard that before, but I do know that people struggle with being vulnerable. For
Hmm.
me, I am an open book and sometimes overshare. So
Right.
that part is the hard part for me. But I love that because nature has become a place to me where it's so calming. I love the ocean and living so close to the ocean, I still never took advantage of it. You know, we all just go through our daily lives and don't explore our own backyard. So that's one of the reason why when I created these walks, I said we're going to walk on the beach because then it forces me to go to my happy place.
Right.
Um, but even if you don't have access to the ocean, if you can just get outside and be in nature. I've heard some people say, well, I can only go on walks certain times of year because of the weather. I live in a place where it's terrible weather, and that's fine that you can't get outside during those times, but you can still go and walk somewhere else.
Hmm.
We Some places still have malls,
Right.
not everywhere. You
Right.
could go walk a circle in a mall, or if you have an office building, you can go walk in the office building. And it's just moving your body. Yes, getting
Yes.
outside. getting the vitamin D with the sunshine and the fresh air and the oxygen from the plants and the trees is preferred, but you you do what you can for what you have available to you.
Absolutely. I live in one of those places where it gets ridiculously hot in the summer,
Yeah.
and it's in the 90s this week. And yeah, you've got to pivot. I can
Hmm.
go for a walk early in the morning, or sometimes I'll just have to walk indoors. It's certainly better than not.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. We have
yeah.
we have similar weather, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Well, as we kind of round this conversation up, I've got three questions I would like to ask you. And something I talk to a lot of guests about is the word success. And I was wondering what that looks like to you and how it's maybe changed throughout your journey.
So growing up, success to me was I was a little girl, so I wanted to get married, I wanted to have kids, I wanted to have the house with the dog and you know have a career where I was I want to say successful, but that's what we're talking about. I had worked up to be in management, and that is how I grew up thinking success was. That is completely different from how I think now. I am still single, never married, no kids. Um, and to me, success is loving your life.
Mhm.
And now you don't have to love every day of it. You don't have to love every minute of it, but being happy with the choices that you make, feeling aligned with your life in the choices that you make. And again, if I could have changed things, yes, I would have gotten married. Yes, I would have had children. That was not part of my plan by choice, but this is how life has dealt its cards to me. And I have my sister, I have my niece, I have my nephews who I could not love more than anything in the world. They drive me crazy, but I
Yep,
love
yep.
them. And so to me, just loving what life has dealt for you, and if something isn't working, working towards that change and not accepting it, to me, that's success.
I love that. I think it's a great lesson for us all. You did mention earlier you're not a big reader in a traditional sense, but I was curious if there's a book that has been impactful on your life,
Oh wow, so many of them.
right?
Um,
And you can have
just
more than one, but just curious what jumps out at you when I ask you, not necessarily your favorite book, but something that's created a big impact.
so there's actually two books by an author by the name of Joshua Metcalf, and one is called Pound the Stone, and the other one is called Win in the Dark. They're very short
Right?
reads, which I like.
Right.
And they make it into like a story, but they have fantastic life lessons um, about kind of everything that I've been discussing about consistency and about resilience and how to deal with the challenges when they come your way. And I just love both of those books. Now, on the other hand, if you're looking for something that does not sugarcoat,
Hmm.
that is a little more intense and just kind of gives you that slap in the face of stop messing around and just do the
Hmm.
thing. David Goggins wrote two books, and those really helped me. They're not for everyone, so please
Right.
read with caution. But those are kind of on both sides of the spectrum there.
I love it. My third of these three questions for you is if you set up a walking, meetup next weekend, and you could have somebody join your group. This could be somebody you know, somebody you don't know, famous, not famous, passed away, alive. Anyone in the world join your group, and you get to walk with them, pick their brain, talk to them, learn from them. Who would you like to join your group?
Wow.
And again, there could be
So,
many answers, but just curious who might come to your mind.
yeah, I have a few answers.
Right.
So the very first one that came to my mind is I am a millennial and I love boy bands. So it would be somebody from a boy band.
Yes.
But um my real answer might not be as fun because it's anyone that really is just looking for community and looking for a friend or accountability person to get those steps in. And those are the people that I love walking with.
I love that. And yeah, it might boy band is a great answer, but that's an important answer. I love both of them. I'd be curious now, your favorite boy band, can you name one?
In sync,
NSYNC.
100%.
A very good friend of mine has the NSYNC bobbleheads, and I think if our house is burning down, those are the things that are getting grabbed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have all of them. Like yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, if people want to ask you questions, if they're curious about how to start a walking group in their area, or just have questions about what you've talked about today, where can they find you?
So one part that I didn't touch on is that I actually help people create walking groups in their area.
Right.
And I started this in Southern California, but we are now in 5 locations, and next week we launch in Canada. So I
Wow.
help people become what I call an ambassador of One Small Step Walks. All you have to do is be able to portray the mission of One Small Step Walks. And I do all the back end work. I'll do the marketing, I'll get the people there. You just show up and lead the walk because for me, I would love to have this mission reach everyone, but I know that I physically cannot be there. So these people are helping me cr- expand my mission. So if you really want a walking group and you're not in Southern California, please reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram is at One Small Step Walks. Walks is plural and there's no spaces. And I can help you create a group in your area.
I love that. And I love that you are already, let's just call it international.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, Tracy, I cannot thank you enough. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm certainly leaving feeling inspired. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to everybody. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you again to this week's guest, and I hope today's episode was as enjoyable for you as it was for me, and perhaps even inspired your next adventure. If you did enjoy the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more information at theoutdoorseyeducator.com or follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to the Outdoorsy Educator Podcast.